Of course, as usual, Steve Perry on the vocals there with Journey bumping us into this segment. I say that we do it every day because they got a new album out. Do you know that? First one they made in 10 years.
Steve Perry?
No, not Steve Perry, unfortunately, but Journey does with Arnell Pineda.
Yeah.
And it's called Freedom.
Oh, cool.
And the tour that they just completed was called the Freedom Tour.
Oh,
and
that's great.
It really it's a great album and our CD, DVD, whatever the hell it is these days. But digital music's really what it is. And it's doing quite well.
I heard you coming in when I was driving in.
Mitch Tyner, by the way, our guest.
Oh, thank you. Heard you playing some Bad Company.
Oh, yeah.
And that took me to high school.
That's what I told Ryan.
And I had a 69 Oldsmobile that I had cut out, had an FM converter stacked on top of an 8-track, stacked on top of a cassette. And I had a Bad Company cassette that I just wore out.
We all did. I can still remember the album jacket, as I recall, was black background and just Bad CO, I think, kind of diagonally across it. So.
Oh,
yeah, good old music.
Yeah.
Don't make them like that anymore. I tell you, we're getting old, Mitch. It's just simple as that. We're getting old because, you see, I've already told the audience here, shared with them, my disapproval of the twerking state senator. And by the way, folks, I before we came on the air, I shared the video. I turned the screen around so Mitch could take a look at that. He was not aware of it. And kind of had the same facial expression that I did. Oh, gosh.
Well, it's just not appealing in any sense to me, and it seems like it's, for me, socially, it's just over the top.
I agree. And somebody on the text line said this will probably garner more votes for doing that, which I think,
it may,
shows you kind of where we are in society.
And then, and again, even though it's not my taste, I'm not. I'm pretty libertarian there. If she wants to do that, that's her business.
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. But you're an elected official, and you can't say, I'm entitled to my privacy, but then you stick your private life out there in public.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So she's not asking for privacy now, is she?
No.
Okay.
And she's also not apologizing for it. She just says, this is me, and I'm not shying away from that. Here's my concern. We seem to continue to push the envelope, culturally speaking, in society. So today it's twerking with a little bit of material in the form of a bikini on her body.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it's totally naked.
It may be. I don't know.
I mean, it's that's where we're headed. It seems to me like we don't have any thresholds anymore, and I guess kind of the constraints and the parameters of what used to be and what should be and what is culturally appropriate continues to change. That goalpost just keeps moving.
It does, and I guess, Gerard, that's throughout history.
I guess so. I guess so.
Can you imagine?
How much more?
Can you imagine what the Pilgrims would be doing right now if they saw that?
I mean, I agree. So I don't know. It's all crazy. So,
yes.
All right. The Supreme Court decisions, a raft of recent decisions came down that were fairly earth-shaking. The first of which, I guess, is the Dobbs case, originated here in Mississippi. That has turned the country on its side and really lined us up, unfortunately, on two sides of this entire abortion argument. But were you surprised at the ruling?
I was. Nobody could be surprised because they leaked it out before it came out.
That's true. Yeah.
But the decision is far-reaching beyond abortion.
Right.
I can't help but agree with them. That has reinstituted states' rights.
Sure.
And I'm proud of that. I truly believe that we are united states, and so the states should be more sovereign than they are. We've ceded so much power to the federal government, and so I think this is the Supreme Court giving a little bit of power back to the states. So I think it's a great decision, not only for babies, but for a lot of other areas as well.
Yeah. I mean, it is in accordance with the Constitution. What shocks me, Mitch, is we get those who are incensed over this ruling say, well, this is the end of democracy. Well, no, in fact, this is reaffirming democracy.
It is, and it is reaffirming it in a way that it is more local. So not only do they reaffirm democracy, but they're bringing it down to our level. As if we have a little bit of influence, it's going to be on the local level.
Right.
As it goes to D.C., we have less and less influence.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great decision all the way around.
One of the things that you can't help but notice is how creative the pro-choice crowd has gotten. We've heard about some group talking about setting up an abortion shop out on in the Gulf. You seen that? Like
I have not seen that.
What's it called? Right? Like a floating abortion clinic, Rhino, or something to that effect?
International waters or something?
I think just would be not within the state's boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that. We've seen Elizabeth Warren, the senator from the Bay State of Massachusetts, has floated the idea of erecting abortion clinics on federal land within the states that are banning or restricting it, such as in Mississippi. Maybe national parks, we'd have an abortion clinic.
Well,
military installation.
There you go again.
Right.
Taking away states' rights.
Right.
You try to impose the federal government on top of you. So that would be a very, very bad thing to do.
The one that, besides the Dobbs case, I would say, Mitch, next on the list that I was glad to see was this decision with respect to the EPA in West Virginia to severely restrict an administrative agency's power and scope, where they get to the point where they just start making laws on their own. And basically the Supreme Court said, you're overstepping the boundaries of the law that you're supposed to act on, serve as the regulator for.
So I could spend about a year on this subject. We've allowed this to happen, and I have to say our elected officials have allowed it to happen, and they actually enjoy the benefit of it because rather than taking on issues directly by our elected officials, they have ceded their power to the agencies. And so now a constituent's upset, they call up and say, hey, EPA's waters administrative procedure is killing my business. Well, they can write not really mean letters to the agency.
Yeah.
They may have no effect, but their constituents happy with them.
Right.
And so they've really taken that responsibility and abdicated their responsibility to the agencies. It's a huge problem because the agencies have the power of law, and we didn't elect any of those people. And I worked up there for 4 years, and I can tell you there's a lot of folks you don't want making decisions for your life, Gerard, in Washington, D.C.
And let's be fair, I think, Mitch, that we should point out this is both sides of the aisle.
Yes.
I think have been guilty, if you could call it that, or certainly participated in overstepping. But I think you're right in that we can't get anything done through the Congress and to the president's desk, so we're just going to push the envelope here as much as we can down through the administrative state. And the final statement I make, let you be quiet, let you talk. This is really what Donald Trump was talking about. I give him credit on this when he constantly discussed the swamp. This is really what he was talking about.
Yes, it is the swamp. And we have a line of cases that has supported that have gone to the Supreme Court. And so what happens is if an agency promulgates a new regulation, then they'll not only have the regulation, and then they'll have something that explains the regulation. The explanation has the authority of law as well.
Gotcha.
And so some of these cases have gone to the Supreme Court, and the one that really sticks out in my mind, we call it's a case with Chevron, and they call it the Chevron deference.
Yeah.
And so what happens is when the Supreme Court reviews it, then they're going to give the deference to the deciding agency. And I think that decision has got to be changed because the Supreme Court is saying, the agency, if it's even close, we're just going to go with the agency. And so litigants don't get a fair shake in the court system because of Chevron deference. So I think that needs to be undermined, reversed, so that your litigants have an opportunity to at least attempt to override the agency that promulgated the regulation. And this is one other thing. Inside the agencies, Gerard, and you see it in government all the time, but there are no business people in there. And so they promulgate these regulations that they have no idea the complete circumstances surrounding those regulations.
Which have tremendous impact on businesses.
They do. And on people's lives.
Oh, gosh, that's terrible. All right, we're going to take a break here. We got Mitch. You can hang around?
Sure.
We got Mitch Tyner, attorney with the Tyner Law Firm and political analyst. We got some more to talk about after the break. Studios, Mitch Tyner's our guest. Gary in Meridian says, if you're going to show him the twerking senator, get him a motion sickness bag.
That's good advice, Gary. Thank you.
Oh, gosh, I did swing the monitor around, and so Mitch
You took it back just in time, though.
But I don't know if she wins by an overwhelming margin. We may see more twerking ads, right?
Well, that's right. And I said the example off the air a while ago. I said, we got Kenny Stokes in Jackson.
Yeah.
And we think some of the things he says are ludicrous, but his people love him.
They sure do.
And they're going to keep electing him.
No doubt about it. I totally agree. So I guess you just got to know your constituents.
Maybe so.
You live in a twerking district, you got to twerk.
Oh my goodness, I would fail on that, I believe.
All right, so we're talking about these Supreme Court decisions, and we should also point out that without Donald Trump winning the presidency, we probably don't have this outcome.
You're absolutely right. It's amazing because remember we started with 17 candidates in that primary,
yep.
and no one gave Trump a chance whatsoever. And then as he began to win, that was one of the big things is they were like, he's too liberal, and we're not going to get conservative judges on the bench, and he got to 0.3.
I know, incredible.
They're all conservative,
exactly.
Not as conservative as I would like at times, but goodness gracious, they're great picks.
I think probably the best we could get through, though. It's one way to look at it. You got to figure that into it as well. You've got to be, I guess, when you're a candidate, you've got to be electable, and when you're a nominee for an appointment to the Supreme Court, you got to be affirmable, so to speak. So,
of course, we had a heck of a fight.
No doubt about it. It was brutal.
Thank goodness we controlled the Senate at that time.
Agree. And I got to tell you, I'll never forget when Susan Collins finally yielded.
Yes.
And I don't know who her speechwriter is, but that was an excellent speech. Yeah. And I've referred to that speech many times. Yeah, she made some, I thought, very rational, logical, common sense comments.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things she said is that, when people, I'm paraphrasing here, but when we're inflamed at each other is when we have a tendency to not make good decisions.
Yes.
And so true.
I agree.
We get all wound up.
That's right.
And it just becomes a matter of who can outdo the other and who could stand, be the last person standing. And she just made the point that when we're inflamed like this at each other, we're likely not to produce the best outcome.
Yeah,
and
that's a great point.
It was excellent.
And it kind of goes along with your last segment, and you were talking about I've still got hope that the future's going to be better.
Well, sure. I mean, you have to believe that,
yeah.
and I do. Does that mean that we don't have some choppy waters ahead? Well, sure, we always do. But gosh, if I'm not ready to just give up.
Throw in the towel.
No, not whatsoever. I'm still optimistic.
The greatest country in the history of the world, we're just going to quit?
No, that ain't going to happen.
No.
I don't like a lot of the stuff I see. And look, there are people that disagree with me and us.
Sure.
They don't like what they see from us.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest about it. But somehow we seem to survive it. We seem to work through it, and I just think our best days are.
One of my closest friends is a lawyer that is a huge Democrat, and we disagree on some subjects, but we love each other and respect eeach other, and enjoy each other's advice. So,
yeah. I'm going to quote what Susan said here because it piqued my interest, and I'm sorry I couldn't recall the exact language. She said, "We must always remember that it is when passions are most inflamed that fairness is most in jeopardy." I just thought that was profound.
That's great.
I don't always agree with her policy positions,
sure,
but I thought that was an excellent way to kind of capture the mood in the Senate and reflect upon what had happened in the days leading up to her. Because it remembers when she came on board is what
cleared it. Yeah,
what cleared the way for I think it was Kavanaugh, as I recall. Was it Kavanaugh or Gorsuch? I want to say it was Kavanaugh.
Yeah, I don't remember Gorsuch being so bad. Kavanaugh's was terrible.
Yeah, that was a really big one. But nonetheless, I thought that was pretty good. All right, so let's talk politics a minute. We got midterms. Hard to believe.
Yes.
Comes around every 2 years.
Thank God they're on the way. They can't get there quick enough.
All 435 members of the United States House up for re-election.
That's right.
Most are predicting a so-called red wave. Where do you stand these days?
So I agree. I think we will take the House. And I mentioned to you off the air, a few months ago, I would have said we'd pick up 40 seats minimum. I'm not quite that optimistic today, Gerard, but I do think that we're in the 15 to 20 seat range ahead in the House. So,
well, I've seen some estimates as low as a 7-seat margin, and that's certainly possible. But I do think, Mitch, in this environment, we're so polarized that I don't know there's a lot that would be brought to the floor that wouldn't be done on party lines. I don't know that you'd have many pull off one way or another. You know what I'm saying?
I
so
do.
A 7-seat advantage, is all you need. You're not likely to peel off 7 and a bill risk not being passed.
That's right. Yeah, and the closer the margin, the more power the speaker's going to have.
Oh,
too.
Exactly. That's true.
So
yeah, that's absolutely true.
That I think we take the House pretty soundly. I hope it's more than 7.
Yeah.
I would feel much better with 15 to 20.
Agree.
Or more.
Yeah, I agree. The Senate, what do you think?
Senate, I think we're going to take the Senate as well. 1 seat,
maybe 2.
I think we're probably by 2.
Okay.
But 1 seat's good enough for me too on that scale. So
yeah.
I'd be delighted to see us.
So then we likely. So here's the thing that I think we got to be honest with folks about. I know there's an expectation. I feel like there is a prevailing expectation that we're going to have these midterms. We're going to flip the House. Maybe we have a 1 or 2 seat advantage in the Senate. And, happy days are going to break out again, maybe because we block the Biden agenda, but you're still fairly powerless. There's not anything you can get through, but you stop him from getting stuff through.
That's correct, because we would not have the ability to override any veto that comes out of the White House.
Right.
But we can put the brakes on some of this crazy liberal
That's the main thing
grab.
in my view.
Yeah.
And hopefully that gives some degree of comfort. Thinking about from an economic perspective, I like to say that faith, confidence, and certainty drive investment, hiring, and expansion. If you have faith, if you have confidence, you have some degree of certainty into the future, you're more likely to take risks. You're a business person.
That's
you know
right.
how that works.
Sure.
Even in your personal household. That's the way we run them, right?
That's right.
So maybe,
the more known things, then the better you can plan and create your business and grow your business.
And I'll give an easy example. We got Schumer pushing Joe Manchin really hard on the scaled-down Build Back Better program, which includes massive tax hikes, including on small and mid-sized businesses. And when you're a small and mid-sized business and you know that's a possibility, maybe you're hesitant to make those investments, to take that risk.
Right. Great point.
But if you know you got gridlock, they can't touch it. The Trump tax cuts, the current tax structure stays intact, at least for 2 years, at a minimum for 2 years, and likely beyond that, then you feel pretty good.
Well, and that's the other thing. I hate that Schumer's in Manchin's ear that much about this, but they see the writing on the wall come November. So if they're going to do anything, they're going to do it between now and November.
Trying to ram it through.
But what scares me about that is, we got the feds about to raise another 50 basis points.
Yeah.
So if we do the Manchin-Schumer deal, they're going to print more money.
Right.
So is that going to mean we're going to have to raise some more rates?
Yeah, more
because
inflation.
Inflation's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's just so counterproductive. To be going in there and printing all this money. It's scary to me that we don't live off of the taxes collected.
I know. Still $1 trillion short.
Yeah, and we just print it.
And the president's bragging about cutting the deficit. He cuts the deficit down to a mere $1.1 trillion. He takes a victory lap, and it's because he's the one that rammed through the a $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. It's crazy.
It is crazy. The Build Back Better, if he'd gotten that sucker through, that would be what, 3 or 4 more trillion?
Yeah, I think it was roughly $3 trillion.
Yeah,
the big version of it. Mitch, thanks for coming in. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Gerard.
Yep.
Great to see you. My pleasure.
We got half an hour left on Midday. Stay with us. We'll be right back.